You're listening to Live on KEXP. It's my joy and pleasure to introduce to you one of my favorite artists from anywhere. She happens to be from Zambia. This is Sampa the Great.
Yeah. All the way from Zambia, KEXP. Yeah, we took fabric, make that shit classic. That shit ain't average, we did. Who took music, made that shit language. African branded, we did. Who took movements, we been included. Made it a movement, we did. Who's the origin, straight from the source, and then redistributed? Who did? Hey! Yeah. 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 Huh. If ever they ever pushed out the way, then I put it straight out of shit it. They passed the baton, I pushed on the way, and I made it. I'm on my way. It's on the higher. Fuck what they told you, my colonies higher. There was no proof I required. Beginning and ending the way I retired. Please gonna come here again. Please don't call me your friend. Please don't remind my history claiming my victory, claiming my pain. I will not say it again. You will remember the name. Some of the greatest are greatest. I thought that I said it. I thought that I said it. It's never forget. Never Forget, featuring Chef 187, Mwanjé, Tembo, and T.O. Nation.
Woo!
Alright, we're gonna take it to Southern Africa right now. Give me some of that Zona vibe. Hey! Banded by Tina, Warata Yarata Duce Guatina. I'm fresh for you. I can sing with the cause I make money like Sheeta. My chick, my flow. And I figure this, figure six, figures out. Show this dress, better watch this flow. Better watch when you utter with it. Please don't fuck up a comma. My black, my shit, my country, my armor. My people, my honor. No less, I bless, be the best, though. Been rocking the shit to the origin. They acting like they can't see us. I believe they can't know us. What you want singing now? We like to shut. Nah, I like to, you like to, we like to shut. Better run it back, cause we're going. Run it back, he's gon' be down my nerve. It's gon' be this bird. Run it back, he's gon' be down my nerve. It's gon' be this bird. Flex. I don't feel no pressure when I do what I do, no pressure, no stress, no pressure, no what I do, but I don't stress. When you're on the parties, wanna tell them who want it, who from the day yardy. Not defending you hardy, better watch you when you come in the corner. Please no pledge, tell them get on my face. No doubt, no fear, no I don't lie. No, but there's no trace. African knows first place, cause we've been rocking this shit since the origin. They be acting like they can't see us win. I believe they can know us. Watching what we're singing now, we like to show. You like to, we like to shine. Better run it back, cause it's more. Run it back, please don't be on my nerve. It's gon' be this bad flex. Run it back, please don't be on my nerve. It's gon' be this bad flex. Yeah, hey. That's a big, big vibe called Bona right there. Next song we're about to do is called Let Me Be Great. This is a very important song to me because I did this song with a queen called Angelique Kidjo. She's legendary. She's been a huge influence to all of us. And it's an honor to do a song with her and to be on a song with a legend who everyone is inspired by. This song is called Let Me Be Great. Yeah. King. These only are the signs. Many men to their own devices. Tell the story, living at the crisis. Semi. Quite sucks to be the boss. The hunter should be looking at my balls. I'm lying now. King, yes, applause, I'm feeling it. But the cause, what is it the cause? I'm healing, I'm dealing with my heroes, all shitting on my flaws. When I was younger, you was on my goals. Now it's replaced this. It will never be another me, nigga. So I figured I could cut my own path, show it. I'm an exhibit on my name. I'm Sammy, I'm Tembo, I'm Eve, I'm Sampa, I'm great. Remember when these dab fear, you will have my voice and a song in your ear. You can time travel any month, any year. You the greatest, yeah. I told you this is what you need to hear. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, yeah. Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, yeah. Forever and ever. I'ma be great. And you can never fail, and even if you fall, you prevail. And you can never listen with the lesson, and I'm impressing. Son, it's not about impressing, I'm expressing. And every path I pay, still stressing. And some say, stay in your lane. If I stayed, I'd be playing with them little wine books, singing Tupac hooks, still ignore the fact that a queen named Lauren said that I could conquer any hill. That's how I feel, that's how I feel. My vision, I'm impeccable. Every strain gain, like I said, impeccable. Looking to the future, full vision, no spectacle. This legacy is what I see. Remember when these tap fear, you will have my voice and a song in your ear. You can time travel any month, any year. You're the greatest, yeah. I told you cause it's what you need to hear. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna be. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. Yeah, I'm gonna burn. This song says, let me be great. No matter what you think of me on my journey, let me. Let me. Let me. Let me. We gonna get even more serious with final form. Oh yeah.
Baby, I can't afford to cover the course, of course, baby. So that I want to go by, judging by the basics. Y'all already comfortable, stuck up in the matrix. Shit is basic. Past credentials, but understand your favorite rapper, people got potential. I'm not ashamed, been passive, tryna feed the circle, cause I don't know how to act shit. Half I always study is computer, try to back it. Just because the seasoning of flow's already active. Only 4 years, fantastic. Young veteran, new classic. Nah, not the walls up, fuck the whole keys, we gon' hinge the whole door. I'm still 80, never forget it. It's life after death, roll the credit. Yeah, credit my nigga, take a trip to see Jamaica, Molly scribble with the back design. This now Africa, the new America, hope a roll is permanent. This I put my pen in it, I'm running and my permit with it. Bone on my bone, flesh on my flesh. When you see me, you can make me feel rich. Let's run, I'm not impressed. Best smoke, I'm a afro like an empress. Quick state of me, and I'll stick to me. I might find a form in my melody. Hey, quick state of me, and I'll stick to me. I might find a form in my melanin. Yeah, yeah. I might find a form in my melody. Quick state of me, and I'll stick to me. I might find a form, yeah. Hey, black power, louder. Yo, last name Tembo, first name Eve. Somebody ate the food that told the way to never eat. I'm trippin', DNA stains like I'm Bongo. I be mad too, cheese. Third wall in it, fresh wall, I did it. No mentor on my he was assassinated. We been here, reincarnated. Tryna finish what they started and we made it shit. Great state of me, and now since I'm me, I might find a form in my millionaire. Great state of me, and now since I'm me, I might find a form in my melanin, yeah, yeah. I might find a form in my melanin. Great state of me, and now since I'm me, I might find a form, yeah. My melanin, yeah. Yeah. Black power, louder. Yeah. Black power, louder. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Louder. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Black power. KEXP. Final form. Sampa the Great. Hey. Yeah.
Yeah. Sampa the Great, live on KEXP. Oh, thank you, and welcome to Seattle.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Man, right off top, can you introduce us to who
Yes,
you brought
of course.
with you? Yeah.
So my MD, and on the keys we have Laz. On the drums we have Kasonde. On the guitar we have Sammy. Vocals we have Mwanjé, my sister, my cousin Tio, and we have Danny over there making sure we sound good.
It sounds great. I'm so excited to meet you. So
thank
excited to be able to host this in studio. I love that you brought family.
Of course.
I know that family is a big part of everyone's story, but of
Yeah.
your story in particular, and the story of this album. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
As above, so below. You are born and raised between Zambia and Botswana.
Yep.
I heard of you when you were living in Melbourne, Australia.
Yes.
But in the last 3 years, you've been based in Zambia again.
Relocated back to Zambia, yeah.
Yeah, can you talk about why it was important to make that move back? And
Man.
And how it connects to this album.
It wasn't even planned, you know. It was very, so the pandemic happened. My dad got COVID, and it was like, okay, I have to go and make sure my parents are fine, my family's fine. Relocated back to Zambia, and I couldn't get back into Australia. And a lot of people couldn't get back to Australia because the borders were closed. And it just became a thing where I attempted to go back to Australia several times, and it was like, okay, if I'm being told to just stay here universally, then let me just stay here and see what I'm here to do. And it was always a goal to go back to Zambia at the end of my career, open up studios, work with, you know, young musicians from Zambia, but it was never a short-term goal because I didn't have the resources yet for that.
Right.
But life was just like, yo, here you are, you planned it here, do what you gotta do. And I started working with musicians from home, and then the album started forming.
I love it. You have a tribute to Zambian rock music, and there's a connection. There's a family connection there too, I read.
Yeah, so
Can you talk about that?
it turns out our uncle was one of the founding members of Which my dad just nonchalantly is like, oh yeah, Which, yeah, your uncle was in there. It's like, I could have used this information when I started out in my career.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's a very lonely road. As a Zambian musician, not a lot of people tour internationally. We don't get a lot of these opportunities. And when you start out, it's not seen as a career. So knowing that family was involved would have been really, really helpful for me. But so our uncles in Which.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you have a Which collaboration on the album.
I do have a Which collaboration with Mr. Jagari Chanda, who's the lead singer of Which, but he's become my mentor in
Amazing.
a sense. I think Zamrock resonated with me because it's so edgy and so different. And also it's traditional music styled with psychedelic rock, which you don't get to hear a lot from the African continent. And I feel like as a hip hop artist who is doing something different and alternative, I really felt like I didn't belong. So we talked about the return and going home and making sure your peoples understand and know you. But when you're coming back with this thing that is quote unquote foreign, like hip hop, it's like, okay, this doesn't sound like us, but it sounds like something we can recognize, and to be able to infuse my cultural music with it and see that Zamrock has done that before, to me was like, okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. How has your music been received by people back home?
I think people love it.
Yeah.
Never forget that we recently did, especially, you know, infusing Zamrock, letting people know that we have music from home that is beautiful, it's international, it's ours, it looks like us, it sounds like us. I think people really got what we were trying to do with Never Forget. So, yeah, I think people support us. I'd like to think people support us at home.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, I first heard your music, must have been 5 years ago now. The single Blue Boss was the first one that got to me.
Lifetimes ago.
And then Birds in the B9 was like one of my favorites that year. The Return was incredible. It's been a bit of a journey. You know, getting ready to release your third album. I never knew that you lived in the U.S. for a while.
I did. So I lived in San Francisco for like about 2 years, and then Azusa for like a year. So it wasn't a long stay, but it was enough to give me some insight into how people view us as Africans, African musicians, and just see the world outside the bubble of my own home and gain some perspective. So it was a harsh, like 3 years, but a needed 3 years.
Yeah. What were some of your big takeaways like from that time period?
I mean, as an international student, you always kind of like shine. You stay in the corner, make sure you do what you got to do. But I found that I related to a lot of people through music. So I found that music is a universal language, a way to connect. So that was one of the big takeaways. And just, you know, how harsh it is and how sort of from home we get this view of, you know, the American dream and the streets paved with gold. And probably alternatively, people get a different view of home in Africa, which is not true. And so I really got to see it for myself and understand how maybe media can portray something that isn't true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so important for us to tell our own stories. And I feel
100%.
like hip hop is
that bridge.
been that bridge, like where we can see each other in a real way because we're telling our own stories,
Exactly.
right? You then went to Australia.
Whew.
And you were based there for years. And
Yeah.
is that where you first started really like releasing music?
Yeah, so I professionally became known as Sampa the Great in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Great mixtape released there, first shows, first concerts, Australia.
I heard you talk about the time that you came out as a period of a black renaissance in Australia.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that time and what that means?
At the time, there were a lot of underground black artists in Australia, but not a lot in the mainstream. And very irritatingly so, because everyone was so good, but you didn't get to see them. And for me, as a black woman in hip-hop, I mean, Australian hip-hop in the last maybe 10, 15 years has been straight white male. And so here I am as an immigrant coming into Australia and like, this is hip-hop music, this is how we do it, this is our stories. These are the people who you need to showcase. And it was a really hard time, but a really needed time for Australian music because you really got to see something beside what people call Australian. There's so many beautiful people from Australia, from different parts of the continent that you don't get to see. You know, people come in, they're like, oh, they're Africans in Australia. Hell yeah, they're Africans in Australia. They're beautiful indigenous people in Australia as well. So we got to showcase that through our music at that time.
Yeah, and I saw you through the years make some beautiful, powerful, and real statements in terms of indigenous solidarity.
Yeah.
In Australia, can you talk about the importance of that, like black and indigenous solidarity there?
100%. I mean,
and beyond.
You're stepping into a land that has been colonized, and as a person who's from the continent, you understand what colonization is. So it was really important to understand that there's a partnership and a kinship. We are supporting each other. We're fighting for the same things, and also recognize you're in someone else's home while you're, proclaiming your blackness and making sure, people understand that there's racism in this land too. So it was a beautiful give and take where we got to learn about each other's culture, got to share in our struggle together, and just make sure people know that there's black music in Australia, indigenous, African, islander, what have you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So at the time we're recording this interview, the album's not out yet. As Above, So Below. What can we expect from the new album?
Range.
Hey.
I'd call it hybrid music. Yes, I love infusing traditional African music with hip hop, but this is in a way I've never done before. So range, a lot of laughter, which is way needed after trying to be everybody's ambassador in Australia, and just a freer sense of Sampa Tembo.
Yeah, I love it. Love to hear it. Man, what's one thing you hope people get from your music more than anything else?
I mean, not in this album alone, but how beautiful it is to share music with people around the world and to be able to connect. I mean, hip-hop has done this for me. Flying to Seattle, Canada, Brazil, like I never thought I'd be in any of these places, and this is because of music alone.
Yeah.
And I think my parents and, people in the older generation are starting to see how music is super important, and hopefully this, opens a door for young Zambians who want to do this too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I gotta commend you too. Like it means so much when you talk about legacy. Like it's in your music. You speak about it. You demonstrate it through working with elders and working with younger artists at the same time. And it's
important.
It's important. It's just such a beautiful thing to see.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone who's watching and listening this interview on KEXP. We are a listener-powered radio station in Seattle, Washington. Everything that we do, all these in studios, the music that we play is made possible by that good listener support. So thank y'all. And thank you, Sampa the Great.
Thank you.
And thank you to your whole band once again. Appreciate y'all.
Peace.
Yeah. Think we did it.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Discover new music at KEXP.org.